The conference room fell silent as Chen's fingers drummed against the mahogany table. She'd built her empire from nothing, a tech startup in her garage that became a billion-dollar corporation before she turned 35. She was used to making hard decisions, but something about firing Marcus Webb felt different, and she couldn't quite place why her chest tightened as she watched him gather his things. Marcus was just another name on a spreadsheet, another casualty of the quarterly efficiency review. At least that's what Olivia told herself as she delivered the news. His department had underperformed, and as the team lead, he took the fall. It was business, nothing personal. She'd said those words 100 times before to 100 different faces. But when Marcus simply nodded, thanked her for the opportunity, and turned to leave without argument or plea, something stirred in her, a feeling she'd long ago buried beneath balance sheets and board meetings. "Mr. Webb," she called out as his hand touched the door handle. He turned back, and for the first time she really looked at him. There were shadows under his eyes, the kind that spoke of sleepless nights and heavy burdens. His suit, though clean and pressed, was slightly worn at the edges. Good luck with your next opportunity." The words felt hollow even as she spoke them. Marcus offered a tired smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you, Miss Chen. I appreciate everything." Then he was gone, and Olivia was left alone with a strange emptiness she couldn't name. She tried to forget about Marcus Webb. There were deals to close, investors to schmooze, competitors to outmaneuver. Her assistant brought the usual afternoon reports, and Olivia dove into them with her characteristic intensity. But that evening, as her driver navigated through the city's rush-hour traffic, she spotted a familiar figure waiting at a bus stop in the rain. It was Marcus, soaked through, his jacket held over a small child's head, a little girl, who couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. Olivia found herself telling her driver to pull over before she could think better of it. "Mr. Webb?" she called through the lowered window. Marcus looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Miss Chen." "Get in, I'll give you a ride." It wasn't a request. He hesitated, glancing down at his daughter, then at the darkening sky. Finally, he nodded, ushering the little girl into the luxury sedan. The child's eyes went wide at the leather seats and the soft interior lighting. "This is Sophie," Marcus said quietly as he buckled her in. "Sophie, say hello to Ms. Chen." "Hello?" the little girl whispered, hugging her rabbit tighter. "Where are you headed?" Olivia's driver asked. Marcus gave an address in one of the city's less affluent neighborhoods. A 40-minute drive in traffic. As they settled in for the ride, Olivia found herself studying them in the reflection of the window. Sophie was humming softly, completely absorbed in making her stuffed rabbit dance along the armrest. Marcus watched his daughter with such tender attention that something in Olivia's chest cracked. "Thank you for this," Marcus said. "Sophie's not feeling well, and the rain—" "It's fine." Olivia meant to leave it at that, to maintain the professional distance, but she heard herself asking, "How old is she?" "7 next month." Pride and pain mingled in his voice. "She's been asking for a birthday party with her friends." But he stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Well, things will work out." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken things. Olivia pulled out her phone, intending to check her emails, but found herself unable to look away from the window's reflection. Sophie had started coughing, a deep, rattling sound that made Marcus immediately pull her close, rubbing her back in practiced circles. "We have a doctor's appointment next week," he murmured, almost to himself. "It'll be okay, sweetheart." Olivia's fingers tightened around her phone. She'd grown up poor, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat. She remembered being Sophie's age, sick with pneumonia, watching her mother choose between rent and medicine. That memory was why she'd fought so hard to build her empire, why she'd become so ruthless in protecting it. When had protecting success become more important than remembering where she came from? When they finally pulled up to a modest apartment building, Marcus thanked her again and helped Sophie out. But as Olivia watched them walk toward the entrance, Sophie's small hand in her father's larger one, she did something completely out of character. "Mr. Webb, wait." He turned, confused. "My office." "Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Hope and wariness warred on his face. "Miss Chen, I don't understand. Just be there." She couldn't explain it. Didn't want to examine it too closely. The car pulled away before he could respond. That weekend, Olivia did something she hadn't done in years. She reviewed Marcus Webb's file herself. Not just the quarterly numbers, but everything. His performance reviews were stellar until 6 months ago. She dug deeper, making calls, asking questions. The picture that emerged made her stomach sink. Marcus's wife had died 18 months ago from cancer. He'd taken on massive medical debt trying to save her. He'd been a rising star in the company, but after becoming a single father, he'd started leaving exactly at 5 to pick Sophie up from school. He never worked weekends anymore. His team's productivity had suffered not because of his leadership, but because he'd been carrying them, compensating, for his reduced hours by doing the work of 3 people himself. Monday morning came. Marcus arrived at 8:50, wearing the same worn suit, but with his shoulders square and his head high. Sophie was with him, clutching her rabbit. "I couldn't find a sitter," he explained. "If this is a problem..." "It's fine," Olivia surprised herself again. She'd never allowed children in the office before. "Sophie, would you like some hot chocolate while your dad and I talk?" The little girl's face lit up, and Olivia found herself smiling genuinely for the first time in months. She led Marcus to her office and closed the door. He stood waiting, dignified in his uncertainty. "I made a mistake," Olivia said simply. "I'm reinstating you with a raise, and I'm restructuring the department to accommodate flexible hours for parents." Marcus stared at her. I don't understand." "You're exactly the kind of leader this company needs. Someone who understands that our employees are human beings, not just productivity metrics. I forgot that somewhere along the way." She paused, emotion creeping into her carefully controlled voice. "I also want to cover Sophie's medical expenses." "All of them. And there's a signing bonus that should take care of your other debts." "Miss Chen, I can't..." His voice broke. "Why would you do this?" Olivia looked out her window at the city below, at the empire she'd built by forgetting who she used to be. "Because someone should have done it for my mother. Because Sophie deserves a father who doesn't have to choose between being there for her and keeping the lights on. Because kindness isn't weakness, and I'd forgotten that." Marcus was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. "I have one request," he said hoarsely. Olivia braced herself, expecting him to ask for more, which would have been fair. But his next words left her completely speechless. "Teach me," Marcus said. "Teach me how to build something like this, not for myself, but so I can create opportunities for other people like us, other single parents, other families struggling to survive. Let me work with you to make this company a place where people don't have to sacrifice their humanity to succeed." Olivia found herself blinking back tears, something she hadn't done in a boardroom, since she was a struggling entrepreneur begging for her first investment. Here was a man she'd fired, who'd lost everything and was barely holding on, asking not for charity but for the chance to help others. "Deal," she whispered. 5 years later, Olivia stood at a podium accepting a humanitarian award for her company's revolutionary family-first policies. Marcus stood beside her as co-CEO, and in the front row sat Sophie, now 12, healthy and radiant, holding not her old stuffed rabbit but a certificate recognizing her father as Philanthropist of the Year. The program they'd built together had spread to hundreds of companies nationwide. They'd created a model that proved profitability and compassion weren't mutually exclusive. But more than that, they'd reminded each other, and eventually the world, that behind every employee, every decision, every number on a spreadsheet was a human being with a story worth hearing. As Olivia looked out at the audience, she caught Marcus's eye. He smiled, and she smiled back, both of them remembering a rainy evening and a chance encounter that had changed everything. Sometimes the most powerful business decision isn't about strategy or profit. Sometimes it's simply about remembering that we're all human, we all struggle, and we all deserve a second chance. The billionaire had learned that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touch and the kindness you choose to give when no one's watching. And that lesson, taught by a single dad and his daughter, was worth more than all her billions combined.